Welcome to Power Your Profits podcast, your friendly guide in bringing your business revenue to the next level. Listen as host Susie Carder hears inspiring stories of success from her fellow entrepreneurs and transformational leaders. Prepare to make significant change to your strategies as they unravel the secrets of building multi-million-dollar businesses and the most effective tips on finance, marketing, and sales accountability. If you want to make your first step towards explosive business growth, this is the right podcast for you. Without further ado, here is your host, Susie.
You're going to love my next guest's bio. Tom Gaddis has always wanted to be self-employed and free from the butt smooching of the corporate world. He wanted success bad enough that he stuck it out to follow the entrepreneur dream. He's going to talk about the ins and outs of what it took to build that company. Please welcome my guest, Tom Gaddis. Welcome to another amazing episode of Power Your Profits, where I bring you my badass friends that are going to give us tools and solutions and amazing stories of their triumphs and their failures. Welcome, Tom. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad that you're here. I feel like you're my brother from another mother. You have a lot of family.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I was just talking to my business partner, Nick, and the team the other day, and I was like, man, I did this thing with Susie. I'm like, she's so awesome. I was like, just makes it fun.
Like, business is supposed to be fun, right? This is what we like to do, so let's make it fun. So tell everybody, Tom, in your words, what's your magic? What's your sweet spot? What's your secret sauce? What do you do in the world? And how do you help us, the entrepreneur?
Sure. There's a couple of things. One is I started out with a service business, right? But now I teach other people how to grow their own businesses because I had some success over the years and able to do a few things, right? So kind of my big thing is like, I really believe what Jay Abraham said, that like, if you can do something and you can have some success with it, like it's your obligation to show other people how to do that, right? So I don't really feel like I've really done anything special. All I've done is like, I've taken some action, I've put some effort into some things, I've had some success. And then I want to share like what that process was like for me, right? Because for me, being an entrepreneur, like I was not born an entrepreneur. Like I'm not like a Gary Vee that was like at 7 years old, was entrepreneuring like everybody else around me and making money and just kind of knew how business worked. Like it's been a hard fought process for me, and it's required me to change a lot of habits and the way I do things. And I've had to learn a lot of stuff along the way. And I know there are steps all along the way that I struggled with that I was like, oh, now I have to figure this out. And I thought, man, it would just be nice if there were somebody out there that had done this before, right? And was kind of sharing what that process looked like. So really what I like to do now is kind of show people what I call like the real work behind it, not like not like the fantasy. Yeah, not like the sprinkle the fairy dust. Like, look, like this is really what goes into it. Because now I have an online business. We sell courses and products online. We do product launches. I had this fantasy that you start an online business and like, yeah, you just sit around in your pajamas all day. You like the money just kind of comes in. You don't really have to talk to anybody. And the reality is that's not the case, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and still a lot of the things that you do in a regular business that you still do in an online business. So kind of my, I guess like what my goal is now is to sort of share that with people and really show them like, look, like there's what you hear the quote gurus talk about, and then there's the reality. And let's talk a little bit about the reality. Now, I still think having an online business is probably one of the best ways to go. I don't think anything about it is particularly hard. It just takes some effort and focusing on the right things, right?
Right. Knowing what to do. I always tell my clients, it doesn't have to be hard. It just has to be strategic and systemic. Then it becomes fun and you can sit back a little bit. It's not the everyday chaos. You're not firefighting when you put systems in place. I'm like you. This didn't come natural. I had to figure out how to do it. I didn't do well in school. And I'm like, I need to figure this out because I needed to make money. That's why I need to figure it out.
Well, and I think too, a lot of times people look and hear like some of the things and they go, gosh, you're so smart. Like you just know all the stuff. It's like, I can tell you like everything that I say that you think is like a smart idea came from a mistake I made. And like the minute you make that mistake, you go, I'm never doing that again. Like, I don't want to be in that position again. And so, yeah, down the road, it looks like, oh, you just kind of like sprang forth with all this entrepreneur knowledge and business. I'm like, that hasn't been the case for me. It's been some hard lessons learned, but it's all been worth it. And just keep moving forward and being consistent, I think, is really a big secret to all that.
When you didn't give up, like so many people hit that brick wall and then they go, oh, okay, I'm done. No, you can't give up. You can't quit. Like I'll have clients, I think I just need to put this program break. No, that's not how it works. No, you don't get to tell me you're quitting. I think not. So just standing for people like, no, this is entrepreneurship. You're going to fall down. You're going to get up. You're going to fall down. You're going to get up. Who's there to pick you up, right?
I totally agree. And also too, like for me, like I was on the other end of the entrepreneurship in that, like I desperately wanted to start a business. I wanted to break out of the norm. Like I just felt like there was more than just having a job and working. Like I was a restaurant manager, so working a gazillion hours a week and not having control of my schedule. Like I just knew there was a better way. And so I went on this like kind of like journey to try to figure that out. And I got caught up in all of this. Like I was buying a lot of stuff, right? Buying a lot of courses, like trying to figure out like, what's the secret? What's this thing that everybody knows that I don't know? And it turns out there's not really a secret, right? Like you just have to like actually do it. And so I spent a lot of time spinning my wheels, buying stuff, trying to figure it out, but not really taking any action. It wasn't really until I started taking some action that it was like, oh, okay. There's really no shortcut. Like you just have to do it, right? Like you can't get to a business that sells thousands and thousands of products every year without first selling that first one, right? You can't have a service business that has 100 clients until you get that first one. And I talk to students a lot about that because give them a suggestion on like how to get a client. And they're like, yeah, but how do I scale that to 100 clients? I'm like, well, how about we get one first? Like, and then we worry about what we're going to do when we get 100.
Right. So Tom, share with people your badass list, because this call, right, I bring in my badass friends. And so you're very unassuming. You're such a humble man, but there's such badassery behind you, right? Even if I look literally behind you with that award on your wall, that's just one of the measures. If you're in the club, you know what that award is. And you're like, is that right? So share with people, because I think that's important just in credibility of going, yes, I can be humble and it's not bragging. It's just, here's the results that I produce in the world. So share a little bit about your badassery and be bold. Just don't be shy.
It's really interesting. The 2 Comma Club award that's on the wall back there, the reason I have that up and the reason that it's kind of such a special thing to me is because when I started, like I said, I was a restaurant manager, right? I got fired from my job and I thought, well, this is my cue. Like I just moved my family from Oklahoma to Maui, Hawaii, like super expensive place, right? Like I'd never even been there before. I had this job. I had it for 8 months. I get fired. Look, this is my chance to start a business. So I started trying to get a service business off the ground and like I wasn't having any success and I was taking unemployment at the time. I started doing this direct mail thing. It was really a simple idea. It's like a jumbo postcard. I would sell ads on it. I'd start mailing it out. And I was able to get like 14 or 16 clients in 7 days with this process. So my agency's starting to grow. Like I'm starting to get some clients, but I'm not really making any money. Like I was a terrible money manager. I didn't have any money. I thought like, I have this way I can get clients. Like I can show that I can get clients. So how about I put a little course together about it, right? So I put a course showing what I was doing. And I actually didn't have the money to buy the ClickFunnels account. It was like $1,000. And so a friend of mine loaned me the money. Like he used his credit card to buy me this ClickFunnels thing. 4 years later, I get this 2 Comma Club award for doing over $1 million in a funnel. And it was just like a big moment for me to come from that spot of like not having the money to do this, just like figuring out a way to make it happen and then actually making it happen. Right. So over those few years, like I had to restructure my service business. I had to get good with the financial aspects of things, figure out how to manage the money. And then as I started like getting more clients, getting more traction, like that agency grew to over 6 figures. And I thought, I want to share this process with other people. So I partnered up with another guy who had an agency in Maui, and we started a little company called Offline Sharks. We started teaching people what we were doing, and we really tried to do it from an authentic place. Like everything that we teach, everything we talk about there are things that we use in our actual agency, right? Like we're not just making things up to put products out and stuff like that. And so over the past 5 years, that company has grown. I think last year we did about 2.2 million. And that's all with basically low ticket product sales, like launching front end products that are $27 that have some funnels in them. Like we started a monthly membership, some other things there. So now recently we've rolled out some other things, some higher end coaching programs, some more done for you stuff, things like that. But again, it's been a whole process, and we really started with nothing, right? Like we had no connections in the industry. We had no, like it was just us, right? And now we're kind of one of the big market leaders in our space, which is teaching people how to start and grow their own digital agencies.
I love it, love it, love it, love it. So many people, when we all experienced this, we had to pivot because of the pandemic. We had to pivot, just really relook. Even if you had an online business, you still had to pivot it, right? It was just It's different. And I find, and I don't know if you find this, every month there has to be another pivot, because what got their attention last month is not getting their attention this month. So what's been your guys' secret sauce in growing and staying in action?
The pandemic was a really interesting situation for us. And you're right. Like when the pandemic hit, like we literally were on Zoom team huddles every single day for hours at a time, discussing like, where do we go? What do we do? What do we talk about? Figuring out a strategy to still bring in clients when all this was going on. And so luckily for us, we had a program where we built these kind of like community websites that we'd been doing before, and they got okay traction. But when the pandemic hit, like they really started to get traction, because we kind of pivoted to this model of like, look, we can set these sites up and we can tell people what's still open, who's still doing business. Like we can really like help the community relay information. And in the process, it'll set us up as an authority. We can talk about our marketing services and things like that kind of on the back end. And so that whole process really took off during the pandemic. And we have some sites set up for Hawaii that got a lot of traction. And so we just started showing people how we were doing that, right? Like we said, look, this pandemic, we're facing it too. This is how we're dealing with it. These are the results we're getting. And we shared our successes and our struggles, right? Like, look, we tried this, it didn't work, all that stuff. And so I think that really resonated with people. And we really kind of doubled down on building our community and just being there to support people that were trying to do this. So that's sort of how we pivoted during that time.
So let's talk about, because you're one of the gifts that you have and one of your badasseries is really about product launches. So give us the 3 things, whatever, however many number, I don't want to say 3, and then you try to stick it in 3 and you're like, Susie, it's not 3. What would you say is the most important thing? Looking back, doing it for years, right? And coming from nothing. I love that you say that as this wasn't my deal. I was a restaurant manager. And to go, I had to learn this, and in a quick amount of time, right? Because what I hear, and I always talk to my students, is you didn't have a back door. You just moved your family to Maui. You just got released from your job, and go, you still have bills to pay. You still have overhead. Your family's still relying on you. And I think so many people use the back door. They have a significant other, and I'm like, well, I need to make $100,000 this month. I could make 10. Yeah. So what would you say in a product launch are those things we have to put in place to make it a win?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is like, you just need to get something out there first. Like first and foremost thing should just be getting something finished that you can bring to the marketplace, right? Something that you think will resonate, that you think will actually help people that are going to buy it. Once you do a launch, like a big part for us has just been constantly looking at everything that happens during a launch and then making adjustments for the next one. And I think too, starting to build those relationships as early as you can, right? Because we do all of our product launches through affiliates. So affiliates promote our products, they do all that stuff, right? And when you're first getting into something and you don't have a lot of connections, like how do you get that traction? How do you get going? And one of the things that I did was to just become a good customer first. So I was in the market that we eventually started selling products. Like I was an agency owner. I was trying to grow agencies. I was buying a lot of products from people on how they were doing it. Just starting in that process of like talking to those people, asking them intelligent questions. If I was having success, sharing it in their communities, like it seems like such a small thing, but when it came time for us to put out our first product, like I was able to reach out to some of those people and like, hey, I don't know if you know me, I'm in your community, I bought this, I bought that, like I'm putting something out. Would you be willing to help me out and support? And couple of guys who didn't really know me, but recognized my name from just being involved. They were like, yeah, sure, man, I'll mail for you. And they turned out to be some of my biggest affiliates, right? Like they were big players in that space. So just being kind of a good customer and participating in the marketplace it definitely helped me to break through that and start to get those affiliates, right? And then I think the other side of that kind of game with affiliates and the launch is just being a good vendor to work with. Like, we're super above board about everything. We try to really go out of our way to help our affiliates to make sure everybody's taken care of and all that stuff. And that's kind of served us well. And then we just put out a ton of products, right? Like, that was really like put our head down and we're just going to churn out. I think we did 5 product launches in the first year. Then we did 4 the next year. Yeah, it's a lot. And they're a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a couple of things that happen when you start doing that. And I say that's been a process. So like, you do 5 product launches in a year. And the first thing you think is like, oh my God, this is a lot of work. Like, I don't want to have to keep doing product launches to keep revenue coming into my business. Like, what can we do to not have to do that? So webinars are a good thing. So we developed some software. We built a webinar. We started doing webinars to our community. So like, trying to getting cash flow coming in outside of the product launches. The product launches are still kind of like our main traffic source, right? But now we've really kind of built out a whole another area that kind of happens after that. So I call it our funnels and the funnel strategy. So it's like the product launch is really just the start of something bigger. It's the thing that brings all the people in. And then we have webinars, we do community building, we have all this stuff that happens after to keep the cash flow coming in. And that way we don't have to start from scratch. So now we only do 2-3 product launches a year, but we've been able to grow our revenue exponentially because we're maximizing that activity that happens from every launch, right? It's not just kind of a one and done thing like it is for most people. Now, kind of the flip side of that is that's a lot of work. You got to spend a lot of time building your community. You got to be committed to showing up every day, every week. But I think like that has the thing that has kept our business booming is that we've been willing to, I think a lot of people, when they do a product launch, they get caught up in the money that it generates right off the bat. Like, it can be a way to generate some quick income. So people they do it. It's a lot of work. And then they just want to go, okay, product launch is over. Let's sit back and relax. You can't do that. You have to keep the momentum up. So I think looking back on what we've done, I would say building those relationships as early as you can, constantly trying to figure out ways that you can improve what you're doing and build out that back end process. And then I would say the third thing is the recurring revenue. Like, one thing that we didn't do from the get-go was build in recurring revenue, and we should have right from the get-go. But I know you're going to ask me a question about a failure, and I'll tell you about the recurring revenue part when that comes up. But yeah, so I would say those are the
question. It's like to go, you don't get here without having some humbling moments, without being brought to your knees, without wanting to light a match.
Yep.
I quit. I'm just going to get a job, right? We do all feel that way at times. Like, let me just go work for Tom. I just can't, Or Tom will say, let me just go work for Susie. I can't anymore. All this chaos. So share one of your biggest failures, and then what did you learn from that?
So we'd done a few product launches, right? And we realized like, we need to do this webinar on the back end because we want to like increase our cash flow. We don't want to be stuck doing these all the time. And so we had decided, we'll just get some software developed, right? I mean, seems easy enough. Everybody does it, right? We'll just have some software developed. I don't know. I guess, is that naive? Whatever it is, it's just like, look, other people are doing it. We should be able to do it. We hire some developers. We're having this software built. We build a whole front end. We do a whole launch that we're going to do. And then we're going to do this webinar on the back end. And it's like 2 days before, like, we were doing the launch already. We've been working on the software, trying to make it better. It's not working right. We do the product launch because we have deadlines, and you have to hit your deadlines. Like, another thing we've kind of stuck to is like, when we set a deadline, we've never changed. Like, no matter what happens, we find a way to make the deadline work. So we're doing the launch and we're still trying to get this software working right. And it's like 2 days before, and I'm on a Zoom call with my partner, Nick, and we're like looking at this software, and I'm just like, we've created like this Frankenstein monster and it just doesn't work right. And I'm like, man, we cannot get on this webinar and sell this. Like, if we sell this, we're just going to get killed. Like, it's just not working right. Like, it's not where it needs to be. So we're like, well, we have this webinar we have to do. Like, what are we going to do? So I was like, look,
reschedule it, right?
You can't reschedule. Like, people are they're already in. So I told Nick, I said, look, like, let me get off this call. Let me put something together and we'll get going. So I thought about it. I got back and I was like, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start a monthly membership. Okay. And we're just going to do 2 live trainings a week because we didn't have anything, right? Like, we'll just tell them we're going to do 2 live trainings a week. We're going to have this monthly membership. We called it the Shark Alliance. I wrote this webinar all around just join this monthly membership. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to give you. Of course, we didn't have any of it yet. Like it's all stuff that's going to be created. So that's the webinar we did 2 days later. And we got like 400 members into this monthly membership. First of all, we're just like,
impressive. We're
stunned. Yeah, like we're stunned. And then we're like, oh my God, like, why didn't we do this before? Like, what were we waiting for? Right. So that started a whole nother process of like, okay, now how do we build this membership out? How do we make it more effective? And I think this is another important point. Like we kind of started this sort of this ready, fire, aim thing with the membership. But now that we had skin in the game, we're like, okay, how do we make this better? How do we grow this thing? How do we bring more value to the people that come in? And so that little humble beginning has grown into this big thing. We have different levels now. We have a free, we have a plus, we have an elite, we have this huge training library that we've built up over time. So we did 2 live training calls every week for a long time. And then eventually we're like, we had this huge amount of training, pre-recorded training that we could put into sections. And then we didn't have to do those training calls every 2 weeks. Like we were able to restructure things and say, look, when you join, you're going to get this vault of information. Plus we're going to just do these additional coaching calls. And so we really kind of built it from scratch while we were getting paid to do it, which was a real eye-opening thing for me. Like, oh my gosh, like this is a good way to do it as well. So it was a scary moment because we didn't know what we were going to do. But again, we didn't quit and we just figured out how to make it work.
I love that, right? I do that all the time, right? Not so much now. In my younger years of business, we would just make it up and sell it and then figure it out on the back end.
Yeah. I mean, we don't.
It's a lot of work, but it's a way to make revenue, right?
And it gets you continue to move forward, right? And we're the same way. Like we don't do that now. Like now things are much more planned out. They're much more orchestrated, all that kind of stuff. But
you got to do that stuff to get to the planned out and orchestrated. Because like you said, in the very beginning, every failure led you to your success.
Yeah.
Right?
My favorite saying is never let failure go to your head. And I would say, my dear mother used to tell me that, Tom, never let failure go to your head. I found that to be the case. Like, regardless of what's happening, regardless of what little traction you're getting, just getting good traction is amazing. And it changes over time, right? Like I look back at some of the first launches we did that we thought were so amazing. And like compared to what we're doing now, they're nothing, but they were the stepping stone to get to where we're at now. Again, no shortcut. You can't go to the multiple 6-figure launch without first doing a launch that just generates a few $1,000. Like it's just part of the process.
Right. Which that few $1,000 in the beginning is just so exciting, right? I think.
Yeah. You feel like you made money from nowhere. Like you create this course. Like to me, it was like a magic trick. It was like, I made this, I shot these videos, I shared this information, I made this course. And then all of a sudden, a few days later, there was like a few $1,000. I was like, it was crazy.
Right.
It can get a little addictive.
It does. It's exciting. That's why I always tell my clients, math is money and money is fun. It becomes really fun once you realize it's the process. The highs and the lows, it's the process. That there will always be another high. Just don't own real estate when you're in the low, right?
Yeah.
Don't stay there. Don't camp there. Just go, okay, I'm learning from that. What did I learn and move? What did I learn and move? What did I learn and move? So what's the one thing, Tom, for you as a man, as a business owner, as a dad, what do you want to be remembered for?
That's a great question. I would say if I could just help one person or a couple of people kind of get out of this idea that they can't do it. For a long time, I felt like I couldn't do this. Like I looked at everybody who was having success and they were just different. They weren't like me. And it even sounds weird to me to say that I have a $2 million business just seems crazy to me. Like I go, well, this can't be right. Like this can't be me. I'm still me. I'm still the same guy, but now we're in this position. So I think just trying to show the way to people that like, look, you don't have to be a super entrepreneur. You don't have to be all this stuff to do it. Like if you just take some action, move forward and don't give up, like just keep going. Like really, I feel like just about anyone can do these types of things. So hopefully what I share and what I do and things like that, really like, I hope most people look at me and go, well, man, if that schmuck can do it, I can do it. Right. Like that's really kind of what I'm going for. Like, cause I think that's the reality. I think the reality is that most people have the skill set. They have the intelligence to be able to do it. They just don't feel like they can. And so I'm hoping that people look at what I've done and just say, you know what? That's amazing that he's done that, but I think I can do this too. They actually go out and try to do it. Yeah.
I think that's what I love, just your transparency and your heart is to go, if I can do it, you can do it, which is what I share with my students all the time. Like, not sprinkle fairy dust. It's hard work. It's commitment. It's being willing to find the answers that you don't have. Sometimes you don't even have the question. You just know, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Finding those mentors, those people who can handhold you through that process and that won't give up on you. And that's what I love about you guys, is you don't give up on people. You're like, not on my watch. Go give up on somebody else, but not on my watch.
Yeah, you want to help them. And to remember, like, if you're the type of person that's out there and you see an opportunity, and like, if you can create something and put it out there, like, to you, that just seems like the smarter way than getting a 9-to-5 job or doing these kinds of things. Like, I had that thought process before I ever had success. And I would tell people like, oh, money's all around us. It's like, it's everywhere. We just have to figure out how to get in front of it. And my family and friends thought I was nuts. Okay. It's hard. Like, how do you say that that's true when you're not having success? Well, if that's the case, then why aren't you doing better? Why are you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? It's like, but I had those same thought processes and all that stuff before the success came. So I think if you're out there and you're starting to learn this stuff about how money flows and entrepreneurship and how to become a creator, how to become I call it a producer instead of a buyer, right? Like, shifting that mentality from somebody who buys things to somebody who produces things that other people buy. Like, cultivate that mindset, even if you're not having success, because it will eventually pay off in the long run, right? You just have to keep kind of like studying and looking around. And like you teach, marketing is such a big key to it. Like, focusing in on how to do the marketing, how to resonate with people, how to present your idea, this thing you've created, in a way that people go, oh, that's exactly what I've been looking for. So key.
And so I believe you have a free gift or free something that you can give us to really test you, see you, experience you, that our audience can use or implement to solve their biggest challenge or this opportunity. So do you have?
Yeah. If you head over to tomgaddis.com, which is where my podcast, What's the Secret is, I have an e-guide on there. It's called the Milk It Method. It's really the strategy that I've used to grow this business, right? And when I say the strategy, what I've done, the way that I've grown all of my businesses, right, is I start something, it has some success. I teach people how to do that thing. So I started this direct mail thing. It had success. I taught people how to do it. Once I was selling those courses, I've had success with that. Now I show people how to do that. Like, how do you put a course around a skill? And that's what the Milk It Method is. It's how to turn any product, idea, or skill into a huge cash cow. And when you download it, there's no like funnel, there's nothing to buy. It's just something I put out there to get it out, right? And MILK, it stands for Market, Idea, Launch, and Ka-ching. So each part, I talk about how to identify your market, how to get your ideas for what to produce, how to launch them, and then how to maximize your cash flow and your profits on the back end of that. So it's a quick read. Again, it's a bigger strategy type thing. Like, there's some specific tactics in there, but it's mainly a strategy that you want to look at. And what's great about it is that when you know that, you always know what to do next. Like, if I don't know who I'm going to sell to, I can't produce like, I need to know that first. Like, who is the person that's going to buy this? And what is it that they're struggling with that I can help them with? And then you just go from there. So you kind of always know what to do.
I love it. Tom, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for always being a yes. I love that about you and spending our time with us. And you heard it. Like, if you love the show, please share Tom with everybody and get the Milk It Guide. I love it. And you can only get the terminology ka-ching on the Power Your Profit podcast. Tom, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Susie.
You're welcome. Have a blessed day.
You too.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Power Your Profits podcast. Let these building blocks from today's most successful industry leaders equip you with the necessary resources and tools to finally establish the highly profitable business of your dreams. Want to hear more? Listen to more episodes at https://poweryourprofitspodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the show. Now is your time to rise to the top of your game, so be sure to catch our next episode. Until next time.